Good morning. This is the Kubernetes Community Hangout. Today is April 14th, and we are recording this event. We have today as our demo, we have Travis Newhouse giving us an update or a demo of AppFormix and what they've been working on in the E2E testing on Azure. We also have an update from David Mcmahon about the Kubernetes release cycle. He's our recently joined engineer who is in charge of release automation. And so he's going to talk about the life of a release note. And then I believe, I haven't seen TJ Golterman yet, but I believe he is on the line and on the hook to talk about the 1.3 blocking features. And then we have some SIG business and some notices. It looks like a decent sized agenda, but without long and harried discussions as we have been, not harried, long and diverse discussions that we've had over the last few weeks. We'll take a break from those and pick them up again with what to do with the broader community efforts proposal, as well as a few other proposals in upcoming weeks. So let's get this started with Travis.
Hi, good morning, everybody, or good day, wherever you're at. I'm going to share a couple slides here.
And while you're pulling up the slides, I'll remind everyone that we could use note takers. So if you have an interest and a little bit of extra brain power, if you could take notes in the community document, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Hopefully you can see the slides now. Briefly, I just want to introduce AppFormix. We are helping enterprises operationalize their software-defined infrastructure with a focus on both Kubernetes and OpenStack. We do that with a policy-based monitoring platform and control of your infrastructure resources, and a single pane of glass that operators and their tenants and users can collaborate with to, best run their applications and their infrastructure. But today I want to talk about some work we're contributing to Kubernetes. And the first thing we've focused on really is expanding the end-to-end tests to the Azure cloud. And first we had to take a look at the cloud provider scripts that existed, and they were out of date and had recently been pulled out of the tree. So we have re-implemented those. They're based on SaltStack, which is the same model right now used by Google Compute Engine and AWS in the cluster directory. We have had some discussion and are looking towards the future, which I think is going to be based on something called Config Manager. And we'll hopefully the plan is to maybe move away from SaltStack. But in the short term, we wanted to get something up and running quickly. And we do have a pull request out that's been gone through a few iterations. We kind of request.
I think we.
Some community subscription.
Travis, I think you're cutting out. You are for me, at least.
I'm thinking that I have bad connection here. I'm going to move.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's a mobile demo. It's okay. We had entertainment of people video bombing Michelle's connection. There we go.
All right. We back?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I don't know how much you guys missed.
You were planning to look at Config Manager.
Okay, Config Manager. Yeah, so like I said, we implemented with SaltStack because we had seen that that's kind of was the model being used by some of the other cloud providers. But we have had some discussions with the community now that they want to move towards Config Manager as something that's a little more universal. And we're certainly looking to follow that work and contribute more to evolve this implementation. But like I said, we want to get something started, and we really wanted to get the end-to-end tests running in some fashion so that we can, evolve this federated testing process. So this was sort of a prerequisite to just have Azure be able to deploy. And again, that code is out for review. It's gone through a few iterations. I think the latest is that this question mark of how it should be implemented if salt stack is the way we want to go forward. We'd like to push for, support and at least having this as an interim solution.
Could I ask a question?
What's that?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
On Azure support, is this are you targeting a like a the Windows version of Docker and a kind of Windows.NET system here, or is this the Linux container service, essentially, right? Sort of like emulate GKE but on Azure. We are using Azure VMs and running Ubuntu in them. Okay, that was the question.
Bob, if you're interested in oh, sorry, Travis. Bob, if you're interested in Kubernetes on Windows, which is different from Kubernetes on Azure, there is a Windows SIG that has been spun up and has started looking at that as well with the native Windows containering possibilities.
Great. No, that's very helpful. I just wasn't sure if that's what they were talking about doing here or not.
Travis, are we locked up again? Or are you
no, I think I was just waiting to see if it was my turn to talk.
Perfect. It's your turn to talk. Let's go.
Yeah. So this was a prerequisite. We do need to get that merged in if we want to keep the test running. For now, we Azure branch every night, and we actually are running the end-to-end tests. So AppFormix is hosting these tests. We run them each night by pulling down the master and patching the salt stack until time comes that those are merged in. We have 14 the E2E scenarios that are passing right now. In the last few weeks, since we've got it up and running, we have discovered 2 issues and fixed them. They were somewhat minor, but this is the kind of things that we see as a benefit to having the test coverage. And so we are working with the SIG testing group on evolving this federated testing process. Right now, what we do is we publish results to a Google Cloud storage bucket. We're trying to figure out the best way for the GitHub and ultimately present them, on maybe some testing dashboard. And we're still working through getting the format just right in this bucket. We're trying to follow the same format that I think the Google Jenkins jobs use for the E2E runner. And so that's really where we're at with the CI. We can use some help on again, understanding the munger maybe and the format. I think we've had some discussion there. If people want to jump in or help us out there, we're welcome to collaborate and get this working end to end so that we can actually, even use these as a gating result if necessary on new releases. And then I just want to lastly kind of share another contribution that we're kicking off, which is what we're calling Kube Health. The goal here is that we want to provide a tool that can do real-time monitoring of the Kubernetes control plane so that you can watch all of the different services and know if they're up and running, if they're having satisfactory performance, the time to launch a pod, is the API stable, is it up and responding? This is work that we're starting with Fabio Yon at the Google Container Engine operations team. He's interested in publishing some tools in this area, and we welcome anyone else who would like to participate with us. And that's it from me. So if you have any questions, let me know. But wanted to just kind of get through that and share what we've been doing and get any feedback people might have.
Hey, quick question. Quick question. This is Lee. Travis, can you sort of quickly talk about how that project Kube Health either builds on top of or next to Heapster and CAdvisor, and sort of where do they all kind of have their place?
Sure. I think the idea is to provide a simple signal that says your services are up and running. cAdvisor is kind of going to give you resource consumption of your various containers, but it's not necessarily going to tell you that, what's the time it takes to perform an operation. Is my Kubernetes cluster still healthy? Can I spawn up new pods? Are the various services up and running on each of my nodes?
Okay, and that's actually, I think it's fairly well stated. I just missed it. So this is the core focus of KubeHealth is on the control plane itself and sort of the operations of the master components, whereas cAdvisor Heapster is more cluster resources and resources for the running containers. So that makes sense as a division.
Yes.
Very cool. Anybody else with questions? All right, well, you have seen it here, and you know how to contact Travis or find the KubeHealth and EDE testing stuff on GitHub. So another way and another place for people to jump in and contribute. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
All right, so up next on our list, and thank you for the note-taking that is happening, Lee. Up next is Kubernetes release with David Mcmahon. So David, I think I saw you.
There we are.
I did, hooray.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I've been working on the release note bits, as you've seen. I guess first I want to say we had been collecting release notes earlier with a simple release note label up until the 1.20 release. And since 1.20, hold on, let me just make sure I'm sharing here, which doesn't look like I am.
We've got your screen now, David. But we may have lost David. David, do you have audio? All right, I just sent him a note.
Sorry, folks. Looks a little crashy here on Linux. I'm not sure why. Let's try this again.
It's that crazy open source stuff. Nobody does it.
And now my audio's dead. That's terrific. Okay.
No, your audio's dead. Your audio's fine now. Your audio's back.
Technologies, folks.
Oh, it is crashy, apparently.
We all better? Okay.
Can you hear us, David?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Fantastic. We are all back.
Yeah, well, I'm going to click this button again. I hope it doesn't crash on Linux. I think I've learned my lesson here. Here we go. Hey,
Share the screen.
look at that.
We can hear you, but we froze you. Yeah, this may be not slides. I bet I can share my screen and he can talk. We'll try that as the next theory. When we get him back.
Am I sharing anything here?
You are sharing. We can see and we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Great.
Okay.
I'm not going to click too many more buttons. We're just going to push
All right,
president.
let's just go for it then.
Okay. Okay. Everybody's got that on their screen, or Sarah, you can see that? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So as I was saying, everybody's been using the release note process up till 1.2, but I think at around that time we decided we really wanted to come up with something a little bit better, because if you notice, the 1.20 release notes are quite a bit more detailed. So we wanted to capture that stuff earlier in the process. So yeah, the idea here is we want to capture these things early. We want to get these things in front of the author at the time that the PR is created, and that gives us both, visibility throughout the cycle and a way to publish this stuff automatically at the end of it. So what's the first step of the life of a release note? Of course, we create a master PR. We've all seen this familiar page before. The important thing here is that the title is the release note, and that shouldn't be news to too many people. We're looking at ways to improve that. There's an open issue right now where we can capture more detail in the PR itself through the use of a template, but for now, the title is the release note. One nice benefit of GitHub, unlike other source code control systems like Perforce, for example, is these changes are mutable, right? So we can actually edit these things. And I encourage people, when they do submit a PR, before or after, if it is a release note, make sure that your title is exactly what you want to communicate at release time. So there I just changed the title on it, and you'll notice at the same time the release note label needed label pops up. This is one of the labels that makes sure that people are giving some attention release note wise to each PR, and whether it is going to be a release note or not. One of the things that has come up is that, and we know this, that reviewers need to manage these labels for now. That's an unfortunate side effect of GitHub's ACL control. We're looking at options for this, and at the end of this presentation, there are some issues that are open, and we want to collect ideas and come up with some kind of resolution there, because we certainly would like everybody to be able to manage these labels. There's nothing super secret about these at all, or that need any level of deep control. So moving on, you can remove the release note label needed, and then you're going to add one of the release note labels that we've got in place right now. Those are simply release note, which lands your change in an other notable changes section of the release notes at release time. Release notes action required, which lands it into the action required. Now, those are like flags and other disruptible things that might happen. You want to raise attention to those more than just an other notable change. And of course, if you're just making a little change that nobody needs to be communicated to about, release note none is certainly a reasonable one to put. So release note label needed will be pulled off automatically once one of these other ones are added, but you can also remove it by hand. We'll also add new labels as needed to as we better get a handle on how we want to structure the release notes. So for this one, we added the release note action required. Skip by that too quickly. And the next thought, or the next consideration is, do you want to cherry pick this to a branch? That introduces the cherry pick candidate label. Now, all of this stuff is happening on the master PR. So we did remove all of the need for these things to be managed on the secondary, the cherry picked PR. So hopefully that simplifies things a bit. You add a cherry pick candidate and a milestone. Both of those are needed, or the label will be removed because we want to know where it's going to end up. once you do cherry pick something, once you do, once you say you want a cherry pick candidate on your PR, how do we handle things? Well, if it's just after the branch and it's before the .0 release, this is handled by the branch manager. Or Eric Paris, who's done a lot of this work here behind the scenes, and you're done. Pretty much, they batch these things up and they're put to the branch as needed. If it is after the .0 release, then you do this through the manual process, which I hope you're all familiar with. Also, the cherry pick pull script, and once you've got the cherry pick pull script run, I should say, if you do the cherry pick pull script after the cherry pick approved label lands on the original PR, then everything is taken care of. If you don't, then you will have to, I believe that the cherry pick candidate label has to be manually removed on the cherry picked PR. You can monitor your cherry pick status here. This is another Eric Paris creation here. This shows what cherry picks are in process, what the status is. And then, of course, at release time, in the change log is where your feature is going to end up. So this is where you'll actually see the result of this. So again, you'll want to edit this because it's going to have your name attached to it. So the better the description, certainly the better for everybody. So keep that in mind when writing PR titles. Here's some links and resources. The release notes, the original proposal is here. That went out a month or so ago, a couple months ago, maybe it was. And of course, the cherry picks document, which details a lot of these labels and how they're used throughout the process. And one last link there, the Kubernetes release, the new repo I've been working to populate. There's an open pull request on it right now with bootstrapping it with some tools, but there's nothing in it currently. And if you do have any questions about this, hopefully some of these future enhancements will answer that. So these are the open issues that hopefully cover some of the concerns that you have, specifically better ACLs over labels. And real quick, if there's any inconsistencies in the docs or the bots, the way that if you go through the process and you're saying, why does it work this way? Well, then it's probably broken because the docs and the bots should sync up. And if they're not, please do file an issue so we can fix it. That's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Is there an existing flowchart of these processes somewhere, or is that something we can throw into a future docs list?
Let me do that. Yeah, let me give some kind of a flow so we can see that. Yeah. I know there's a lot here, and covering it in slides is one thing, but having a flow would certainly be nice to have. Let me do that.
Yeah, the cherry pick labels got me circularly routed in my head.
Yeah, understood. Okay, that's a great idea, Sarah. Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else have questions or suggestions?
I guess, David, just one point of clarification. For those changes that are in fact bug fixes, or just, I take it bug fixes are much more of an automated process, and you just, any bug fix that goes into a release is accounted for in the release notes as well? Or is that separate from the release notes?
That's separate from the release notes. We only capture things that are explicitly marked as a release note. So if you do want it communicated, please do put that label, one of the labels.
So the release note not needed doesn't need to be on all pull requests, merges, updates that don't want that don't need release notes.
Well, so yeah, so let me just back up here. Don't crash.
Please don't crash. Let's go back to, yeah, so there's the 3 release note types that are currently, here we go. Everybody see that? Yeah, so release note none is the one that tells you that we don't want to communicate, tells things that we don't want to communicate it. But one of those is needed. The label needed is the one that is always going to be there until one of these other 3 are added.
Got it. Okay. And that's on every pull request then?
That's on every pull request. Yeah, we want to put it in front of people that, either it is a release note or it's not, but we want, one way, we want to know one way or the other.
Right.
Anybody else? Questions?
All right.
Okay.
Thanks much, David.
Please do email me if you have any questions after this. I'm happy to talk.
All sorts of fun in the land of automating releases. TJ, I think I saw you already on Zoom somewhere. So do you want to go through the 1.3 blocking features conversation?
Sure. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so as part of the 1.3 milestone, to make it better than 1.2, we agreed that we'd come back every couple of weeks to get an overview of how the main blocking key features are going. For this time around, I admit I was out sick the last 2 days, so scrambled a little bit this morning to get status on a few of these that I didn't know. So if anyone is working on these yourselves, please do chime in. But I did want to quickly cover the 4 key ones. And so that is pet set, Kubernetes, additional scaling, and federated testing. So first off, for pet set, there's a very long PR that's been out for maybe 4 months about the design. That's 18016. And basically the latest is that the design is mostly agreed to. So that's good. There was a lot of discussion and back and forth there through the first few weeks of the milestone. And prototyping is starting, but there's no code yet submitted. So that's pet set. For Kubernetes, there's a task list that was created, a GitHub tracking bug that's 23653 that has a whole bunch of items in that that are targeted specifically to 1.3. So that's the actual scoping down into what we'll release in 1.3. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about Kubernetes at the SIG Federation meetings, but that's actually the extent of my knowledge. I didn't get a chance to catch up with Quentin or anyone else. So if anyone knows more details on the Kubernetes status, please do chime in. Nope. Okay. And then for the last 2, in terms of scalability, so the key thing here is working on adding Protobuf support, which looks to add 5 to 10x speed up improvements in some of the API server stuff. And so that is design approved and merged. That is, much of the code is merged, but not all of the code for the Protobuf switchover. So the plan is to finish that up and enable it in testing in the next week or 2, and then start to see how far that gets us towards our 1.3 scalability goals. There's also been some optimizations in the scheduler as well in how things are scaled up and also scaled down. So the scalability, some of the folks working on that are also making sure that we work with a 1-node cluster or a 2-node cluster just as much as we do with thousands of nodes. So that's scalability. That's basically we'll see where we are once the Protobuf changes land. And then the last sort of headline item here was federated testing. There is a full sort of design out, or rather will be out for how to get testing from people outside of Google and how to aggregate all those results. They're planning on reviewing that design at the SIG testing meeting coming up next week. So I urge everyone that's interested in that to definitely attend that. There's also been a lot of work at Google to move some of the Google internal dashboards that we have, moving those to public App Engine apps and make sure that the place where we store test results are publicly accessible. So you probably don't see that, but that is in flight and moving. No external awareness yet, though. Still working on that. And then the last time is that you will see a couple of additions that the test team has put into the submit queue page. So right now, if you go to the queue and look at PRs, it shows the number of lines of code added and deleted on a per PR basis, which can be useful for merging. And also there's an uptime on all of the critical builds, which are under that Google E2E internal tab, so that we can start to get a good idea of which builds are failing most consistently and causing the queue to gum up. So there's a lot of work in tracking the data that test team is producing.
A quick question on the internal testing dashboards. Are there any tickets or, issues that track this? Because I'm looking in the 1.3 milestone and I'm not sure I'm seeing them.
I don't know. We have one internally, but that doesn't help you all that much. I'll follow up on that. It's possible that there's one, or it's possible that it's in the contrib repo as well. But I'll take a look into that.
Okay. Yeah, on the federated testing thing, I guess I'll just say real quick, maybe some people are aware, maybe some people aren't. Behind the scenes, the munger that now rolls through GitHub and comments on every PR, whether or not builds passed or not, is now reading from Google Cloud Storage buckets instead of Jenkins. So it's reading publicly accessible results. Hooray. That's a big step forward towards federated testing. I want to give a huge amount of credit to Merrick and Paris and a bunch of the whole test infra team to actually push that forward. There's been a lot of stuff it's been steadily marching forward. And I really I think it speaks very well of the progress here that this happened without really breaking the submit queue or anything.
And Aaron, the SIG testing meeting is next on Tuesday, 4/19, right?
Correct. Tuesdays at 10:30 a.m. Pacific.
Thank you. That was my next question. It's almost like you anticipated it. Awesome. Anything more on the 1.3 blocking features or testing specifically? Questions for TJ? Okay. That sounds like a whole lot of no, unless I'm on mute, which I don't think I am.
Well, so I guess a quick question, since I'm pointing out how there are things that don't have the 1.3 label attached and I don't have write access, who's the appropriate, do I just sort of find a Googler and bug them to get 1.3 labels, or is there a person to talk to sort of triage this stuff?
That's a great question. I would suggest you nudge the on-call person. Anyone who's in the on-call rotation should have the ability to add and subtract labels, since they're helping bucket things into teams and SIGs and priorities. So I would I think it's Kate's -on-call, and just say, hey, I believe this should be in milestone X. Please check it in there if you don't have label rights.
Okay, sounds good.
And as David mentioned, we're really looking at both automated ways to make labeling possible for people that aren't in the core maintainers have access to everything group, and how to build a progression so that people can work toward and understand what expectations there are in moving up with permissions and responsibilities within the community.
I'd just like to add that anybody who has the ability to put an LGTM label on a PR, like whoever reviewed the PR and added that, should be able to add the milestone as well.
Yeah, labels come together all as a single bucket, if I recall.
Labels, write access, everything. So this is the reason for the other proposal that was sent out about a separate feature repo. And it's also driving investigation and creating repos for the SIGs, for example. So we can have repos that are more focused with more permissive permissions.
Yeah, actually, I would like to talk about that for like 1 minute. We talked about heading into 1.3, we need to do a better job of tracking the list of features. And we said, cool, we'll put milestone 1.3 on them. We'll label them kind feature. And then that will be sort of the spanning set of, I don't know, a few dozen at max features going into 1.3. I went to go do that and hit some trouble. There's not really a single GitHub issue that covers each feature. There are some that are very long PRs that describe the design. There are some that are task lists that are kind of like the feature, but maybe extend beyond 1.3. They don't encapsulate just what we're doing in this milestone. And so I think that I have not done a great job enforcing the like one GitHub issue per feature and bucket in the milestone. What Brian just alluded to, Eric Toon sent out a proposal, I think it was Monday, called the feature workflow proposal, where he had some ideas, like he said, about using a separate repo so that we could then open up label access and get a bunch of additional stuff. And so that is one reasonable solution to this. So I'd encourage anyone to take a look at that and comment on that and see what you guys think.
Yes, please. And it is on the schedule for this call next week to talk about it if there are any concerns. But feedback first and trying to iterate and get us as close to looks good to me, let's just do it between here and next Thursday would be awesome.
Great.
I'm sorry, is there a link for this? Am I totally missing this?
There is. It is actually in our community meeting notes.
Okay, not looking at it. Thanks.
Tweet. So it's listed as an agenda item for next week, which has a link to it. All right. Anyone else with questions for TJ? All right. Well, then I will move on to SIG business. None of the SIGs have jumped up yet to say they want to say things, but I will have a couple of announcements, one for SIG and just generally. So we're looking to do a few weeks or a few blog posts over a few weeks from the different special interest groups about what their charter is, what they're doing, what they hope to put and contribute and engage with in 1.3. So we had one last week, I believe, from SIG Networking, or maybe it went out this week. And then we have one that is scheduled up from SIG Cluster Ops next week, but I am looking for other volunteers, and you can contact me and Bob Herdinsky to figure out what the broader scope is for it, or if you have time to volunteer to write a post and want to get your name on the Kubernetes blog with the SIG, sort of the SIG vision that the SIGs you're working on, then that would be super awesome. You can make the blog post, we'll run it by the SIG broadly, people can review and comment on it, and then we can get it published. Anyone have anything from the SIGs that they want to talk about?
I'll give a quick update if you like.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have been working through the SIG scale, working on the trying to assemble priorities around scalability, performance targets for 1.3. So we had a pretty good discussion about it the last couple of weeks. So there's a document that's in draft form. We're currently in the process of sorting and assigning getting people to step up. So I think we have some more work. A couple of the Google folks, Quentin and Wojtek, are working on a more detailed kind of performance target draft. So there's a bunch of work going on there. It's kind of in flight. I'm hoping that in the next, I think we're going to have another longer meeting on it next week. So maybe the week after, I could give a longer update to the team here around where we stand on that. There are a few things on the list that have, I'll say, feel like they're very important, but we don't have anyone specifically stepping up to work on them. Some of them are kind of small. So if scalability in this area is of interest, please contact me, drop off the group, the usual sort of thing around open source here. So anyway,
So
that's it. Oh, by the way, the docs are all, if you go to the SIG scale notes, you'll see the doc we're working on. It's all linked. You should be able to follow your nose through the documentation and find what we're working on.
And I put you on the April 28th agenda for the SIG Scale 1.3 priorities report.
Great.
Fantastic. Any other SIGs? Really? None? I know SIG networking's been very active.
I mean, I can give a quick update on SIG testing, but I think I sort of gave the biggest priority item around federated testing.
Yeah.
As TJ alluded to, we have sort of a roadmap issue that lays out the sketches for how we're going to accomplish federated testing. That's basically priority number one of this group. And what's already been implemented is basically the full, like I said, the full pull request workflow now uses publicly accessible data. Where we're really at, as Travis alluded to earlier, is documenting what the format of that data is supposed to be and sort of documenting the process for how we're going to enable others to contribute that data and feed that into things like the GitHub Munger, like potential dashboards that are coming out of Google or the dashboards that we already have. And so it seems like we are on track for that to happen prior to 1.3 getting out. I'm sort of the opinion that we're probably going to have most of the mechanics hooked up within the next 2 weeks, a month, which is great. That gives us a full month of actually trying to use federated testing prior to cutting a release, which was sort of the end goal here. And as I said earlier, SIG testing meets weekly, Tuesdays at 10:30 Pacific. Any and all are welcome. The agenda's open. Folks are welcome to make suggestions, and looking forward to seeing you there.
Awesome. We hear from you frequently, which is very cool about testing because we do want to move it forward and make it better.
Yeah. I guess the other tiny thing that's happening here as part of federated testing is the ideal here is to be able to say that a container is the unit of execution. So instead of a really intricate set of flags that are passed to an E2E test binary or a Ginkgo binary, if you can just run a Docker container and that will magically run the tests and put them where they're supposed to go. The internal Google Jenkins server, to the best of my understanding, is now running at least some of the non-critical jobs inside of a Docker container, which is also step one towards that I want a bounty goal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Any other SIGs? Otherwise, I think I'm going to pick on Mike Metrall here in a second. Any other SIGs? So Mike, I am going to pick on you. Do you have a moment that you could talk about the community sites conversations that are going on?
Sure.
Awesome. Thanks. You're not a SIG, but you are definitely a special interest group, which we could make you a SIG.
Sure. So I believe sometime early last week, a group of folks decided to try to chat about the various community sites that are popping up. Some of them include cube.rocks. There is a platform that I run, corecube.com, and a couple others that are kind of blanking my memory at the current moment. But we have a channel on the Slack channel, and it is hashtag community-sites. And in there, we're just trying to figure out how to best coordinate with each other in terms of the various amounts of content that are out there around Kubernetes, not just from a technical level, but in terms of how various different community sites are approaching it. Some of them are like, for example, cube.rocks is trying to be more of like the Hacker News kind of vibe for Kubernetes. CoreCube is aimed at really being somewhat a digestible, but I guess a little bit more deeper dive into certain topics. And kind of every little component has their own niche, but it's really about trying to figure out how we can all collaborate effectively, how we can leverage as much information from each other that's out there, and really just kind of self-promote each other because there's such a wealth of information out there for so many vastly different people. And so we welcome anyone who has any opinions as to how we should consolidate, if we should consolidate, and specifically what each of us should be focusing on, if in fact we should remain independent, because there's always room for lots of these different types of content sites. So this is brand new. It's been a little bit slow to start, but I definitely think there's some great communication going on, and we welcome anyone else who's interested to definitely join us.
Excellent. Thank you. I picked on you.
I'm sorry, Mike. Can you spell again the name of the group?
Yes, it's
Slack channel, I mean.
I'll put it in the chat.
We were seeing a variety of people that were interested in writing public content and pulling together resources for the broader user community. And this is sort of the starting point of, should they consolidate? Should they differentiate? What is the vision? It's basically the community sites. And Mike, I picked on you because you showed up first as I was scrolling through the list, but we have Michael Hausenblas working on this. There's, I'm not gonna be able to think of everyone, I'm sorry. There's the SackPoint Cloud team, which we heard from with a demo a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not sure who the name of the person who runs Kubrox. Anyway, there are a variety of different sites, and just trying to get this consolidated view of where do they differentiate, how can they help each other. It's a really neat idea, and this all started very grassroots. So super happy that you guys have an opportunity to do this.
So in the meantime, how do we find these? Do we have them in a list somewhere on our site?
We don't, as far as I know yet, but pull requests are welcome.
So I will say
I'm
that
learning this. It's awesome.
a mini list started kind of popping up on the main README at the very bottom. One of the guys from Awesome Rocks, I believe, added it.
Kubernetes, yeah.
Awesome Kubernetes, that's right. I went ahead and added a link for CoreCube as well. And if we think there's a better spot for it, definitely let us know. I think that was just the first spot that was chosen, and that's kind of where it's kind of begun.
Well, we have some sort of community link on the new website, right?
We do, and we can make that more. Right now it's a collection of how to engage with us as opposed to promoting any particular resources. But we are talking about doing more promotion of different resources and such, including like systems integrators and people who work in and around the Kubernetes ecosystem, and putting up these community resources would be a great solution too. But hey, because of all the work that John Dillon did, we can still say pull requests are welcome.
Yeah, I mean, pull requests have always been welcome to the docs.
Right. It just is a lot less hard.
It's differently hard, but...
Okay. All right. Well, I have one last announcement, which is the May 5th meeting will be in the Asia-friendly time zone, so 5 p.m. Pacific time, which is actually East Coast U.S. unfriendly, and my apologies for that. It is also Europe unfriendly, but we're trying to, like, once a month include people who might be interested from Asia more directly. So that meeting will happen off cycle, and if we get attendance and we see some traction with it, we'll continue. And if we don't get a lot of attendance or don't see a lot of traction with the Asia friendly times, we may not continue to do them the once a month. So we will see, but we have to start once and see what happens. So that'll be May 5th that it will be off its normal time zone, and I will continue to mention this for the rest of this month. Does anybody else have any other business they want to talk about? Any other notices? Anything exciting? We actually have a few minutes this time. Okay, if anyone is giving us a grand vision of the future, you may still be on mute.
I have a quick topic.
Right.
Since we are getting into 1.3 now, we are still going to release alphas bi-weekly is our cadence, our goal for the cadence anyway. It would be great to hear from people about how we could make those alphas more useful to the community, to get earlier feedback on things that are going in. whether it's additional documentation or testing or better upgrade support or whatever it is. Start a thread on the Kubernetes Google group, or well, that's probably the best way. I can't monitor Slack all the time, unfortunately, but it'd be great to get some feedback on that.
And Alpha 1.32 or 1.3 Alpha 2 came out this week, correct?
That sounds right. If David's still on, he could probably say. But you can go to our releases page on GitHub and see what the latest release is.
Yes, the last alpha was a few days ago.
Awesome. So play with it and give feedback and help us, because this is one of the things that you as the community can very much engage with us early and often and help us fix things. All right, anyone else?
Hi, I had a kind of a general question. I'm not sure, is that okay to ask to the group here?
Go for it.
Okay, so hi everyone. I was wondering, we kind of been looking toward monitoring, Kubernetes clusters. And, I understand that, there's an integration with InfluxDB, that gather, several metrics about the cluster. But we're kind of thinking in terms of getting alerting in terms of, if a CPU goes, above a given threshold or memory, in any of the nodes, within the clusters, goes south. And I was wondering, if there's a best practice in terms of, setting up alerting to be aware of situation where the cluster is going south. We've also been integrating with Prometheus as a monitoring framework. And I wonder if there is maybe thoughts about marrying, both technologies with Kubernetes. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So Heapster actually supports multiple different storage backends. I believe there's support for like Hawkular and things other than just InfluxDB. Heapster's main responsibility is collecting the resource metrics from cAdvisor on all the nodes. I think it does make sense to potentially unify that with other monitoring. It is something we just haven't had time to do. We do actually use Prometheus. We have the control plane and kubelet and kube proxy, I believe, instrumented with metrics that are exported in the Prometheus format. And Heapster is actually capable of collecting metrics, a few metrics from applications that are exported in the Prometheus format as well for driving autoscaling. Actually, I was just looking, we have a contrib example for users to use Prometheus to monitor their metrics. Prometheus has support for Kubernetes service discovery mechanism or to discover user applications, but we have been experimenting with using it to monitor Kubernetes itself also. I'd actually like to see a contrib edition or example or something about how to set up Prometheus to monitor Kubernetes. And it sounds related to the Kube Health effort before. There's nothing in that repo. I actually checked. But maybe that's the intent. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you're putting that out because, I did look into it a few months back and, it was pretty hairy to, get Prometheus to play nice, with the discovery, with the Kubernetes discovery system. So I didn't have very much success there, but I can take a look at it again and see.
Yeah, and I just took a quick look yesterday, coincidentally, and Prometheus documentation does explain how to plug into Kubernetes discovery. I haven't tried it personally, but would love, like I said, would love to extend the current example. Take a look in contrib. I actually just got an issue a few minutes ago to move that to where all our other examples are.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. Thank you very much for your input.
Yeah.
Fernand, there is another thing that might be of interest to you, which is the SIG cluster ops, which is about operating Kubernetes clusters. So there's a special interest group for that. And to your question about any further tighter integration, Prometheus is one of the projects that the Cloud Native Compute Foundation, which is where the Kubernetes project lives, is being considered. It's being considered as a project that we would like to see as part of it, so that there may be future work in that way. And as people work with Prometheus and Kubernetes and document it and have experiences with it and give feedback on both sides, then we will see more ability to make them better and closer.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate the answer.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Last call, or we all get 3 minutes of our life back.
Just a clarification on that last question. Were you saying that the folks at CNCF are looking at, the Prometheus folks are looking at joining possibly CNCF, or you guys are looking at adopting?
The CNCF is looking at requesting a proposal to participate from Prometheus. So it's actually one of the things that we think is very synergistic, for a very marketing term. And so we would like to, we also believe that there's, that it's a very big tent around that sort of work. So this other project that immediately came up was Sysdig. As something to be considered, and all of this is very open and very transparent on the TOC mailing list.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Prometheus, Sysdig, and Heapster are all very complementary. They are focused on collecting different types of data. I agree that a more unified monitoring experience would be better for the user, but in terms of their focuses, they're very complementary.
And Elon is with Datadog, so he has a definite curious vested interest here.
No, I was just trying to understand if it was more of a focus on those for around Kubernetes, as you were saying, or I know CNCF has been talking with other projects that might make sense as top-level CNCF projects. That was
it is more about the CNCF top-level projects as opposed to specifically integrating more tightly with Kubernetes.
Yeah, if we need a monitoring SIG or something like that, I mean, we have a number of examples: Datadog, New Relic, Sysdig. There are a couple of others that I'm blanking on, but I would like to make it more obvious to users what their options are in terms of monitoring solutions that have been integrated with Kubernetes, and what the different sort of target use cases are for each of the tools, because they are a little bit overlapping, but many of them are actually quite different.
Is there? I believe there's a cluster ops SIG.
Yep.
Is that
There is a cluster ops SIG.
Yeah, and cluster ops is right now where monitoring conversations are getting sort of funneled.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that there isn't a good reason to go to cluster or to go to having another SIG. But right now, until that gets too sprawled, that seems like a good spot.
So I think we need some effort to consolidate the documentation and examples on that, because it's not very discoverable right now.
Sure, would be happy to chat with whomever and see what, how we can help with that.
Great.
Awesome. That is Thursday afternoons, I believe at 1 p.m. Pacific time, if I remember correctly, for when the cluster ops group meets.
Yeah, that's the time this afternoon.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all for another well-spent hour learning about what's going on in the Kubernetes community. We will see you all next week. Same time, same place, definitely Zoom. See y'all.
Thanks all.